For today's cup of coffee, I was trying to remind Kid. Of course, he didn't grow up with Rocco's modern life.
What the fuck you talking about?
Well, you didn't know the name of the character.
Just because I don't... Do you know I don't know all the names in SpongeBob either?
Anyhow, it was a turtle, and one of his things was he would say, "I'm nauseous, I'm nauseous." Mm-hmm. So, youngest kid, he's nauseous.
No, I know who exactly you're talking about.
Grumpy.
I just don't know his name.
And he's grumpy. So, anyhow.
I feel like that turtle right now.
Yeah. Anyhow, Snuffy Boy went to the vet again. Steroids, more antibiotics. So, hopefully he'll be doing all right.
Oral antibiotics.
Yes,
now.
that youngest kid has to administer. But you do such a good job of it.
You know why? Why it's so uncomfortable for them? Because I just shoot it.
Well, that's all right.
I just quickly do like, there we go, it's in there.
Well, that's probably,
It hits the back of their throats.
Right.
Nobody likes to get hit in the back of the face.
He's, little guy has got mouth ulcerations, throat ulcerations, which I think he's got GERD. I think he's got some gastric acid coming back up and causing those. Mm-hmm. So we're going to try to probiotic the cat. This was vet approved, so it wasn't like I'm doing anything weird with the kitties. So what we're going to be talking about today is actually the supposed hidden chambers beneath the Sphinx. And this is supposed to be called the Hall of Records. Mm-hmm. And their first article is Hidden Chambers Beneath the Sphinx. Rare images show how to access the Sphinx. And this is by the Ancient Code team, possibly from around 2017. There was not an exact date on it. And this does come from the website Ancient Code. And, of course, the links will be in the description box. And it says in 1987, a Japanese team from Waseda University in Tokyo, under the direction of a Japanese gentleman, carried out an electromagnetic sounding survey of the Khufu Pyramid and the Sphinx and found several cavities and tunnels. And rare images of the Great Sphinx suggest that there are several intricate entrances. Now, the Great Sphinx is the largest monolith statue on the surface of the planet.
Okay.
I would love to one day be able to see that in the pyramids. You know how amazing that would be?
That would be awesome.
And it says that extremely old and rare images, when the Sphinx was still covered in sand, partially, showed some interesting details which could point to the possibility of an underground world existing beneath it. And some authors argue that the Sphinx is older than the ancient Egyptian civilization. Yeah, I've heard that before, that it was pre-Egyptian.
Yeah.
And it was discovered almost completely covered in sand around AD 1817. And the entire Sphinx was finally excavated from 1925 to 1936. Yeah, it took them a minute. And then I can't remember who it was that decided to use the face for target practice.
The face.
For real. Yeah, because people are stupid.
My God.
Anyhow, during the excavation period, there were some interesting photographs that were taken, which depict numerous cavities, entrances, and what appear to be tunnels that, according to many, leads below this ancient monument. Then in the 1987 Japanese team expedition of it, the results were fascinating. They said south of the Sphinx that it's indicated the existence of a hollow 2.5 to 3 meters underground. And they found indications of a groove on the Sphinx body. Mm-hmm. Are you following out over there?
No, not yet.
That extends beneath the Sphinx. Now, north of the Sphinx, they found another groove similar to the southern one, which may indicate a tunnel underneath the Sphinx connecting the south and north grooves.
Okay.
All this under the sand. Isn't it cool that we have the technology that they can do all this stuff?
Yeah.
There in front of the two piles of the Sphinx, there was another hollow space about 1 to 2 meters below the surface, and that might extend underneath the Sphinx. And the conclusion suggests that the sanctuary of the Sphinx contains more cavities below than were previously known. Now, the results of the survey performed by these, by the Japanese scientists were confirmed in 1991 when a team consisting of Thomas Dobecki and John Anthony West carried out a survey of the Sphinx using seismic refraction tomography, and seismic reflection. Yeah, so more cool science toys.
Yeah.
That's using it for the powers of good as opposed to the powers of fuckery. The investigators interpreted their data to indicate shallower subsurface weathering patterns towards the back and deeper weathering towards the front, which they take to indicate that the back of the Sphinx and its ditch were carved by Caffrey later than the front. They interpret their data to likewise indicate subsurface cavities in front of the front left pile, from the left pile back along the south flank. And within this article, it does go into the report, as far as the Japanese team, more in depth. And so people can go and read all the minutiae themselves on that. Now, it says that rare images of the Sphinx show that numerous anomalies used to be there and were covered up by later restorations.
Okay.
And I do know that about certain things that it's like, oh, we'll make it look like this. It's not just the Sphinx. There's been lots of things over the years that it's like, we're going to repurpose this. Sort of like how Hollywood is doing films today.
Repurpose the Sphinx?
Yeah.
How the fuck are they going to do that, seriously?
Well, I mean, as far as covering up this stuff, that there were different... there was one that they thought there were different holes in there that they thought that it may have been, as eye slits actually. If it were a burial chamber, some think that it was, some think that it wasn't, but the eye slits were there so that the ka, which was the spirit, could exit.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
And it says there are images that show a huge fissure at the top of the hips, which some claim leads to the burial chamber. And according to Secret History, Wikia, whatever it is, there's also a documented evidence of a large rectangular entrance on the top of the hips. At the back. Well, of course it's at the back. That's where your hips are.
Yeah.
And just some of this, I'm like, why would you put that? And said that this entrance measured 4 feet by 2 feet in size and is mentioned in many travelers' reports, that have visited there. That's not a huge something. But anyhow, that's theirs.
It's a thing, though.
It is a thing. Now, within this, I couldn't decide where to put this, but I'll put it here. There is a gentleman. One of the reasons that there's not been more research done in those areas, especially around the pyramids and the Sphinx and stuff like that, is because of Zahi Hawass.
And who's that?
He is interesting. He is like the dictator of all the Egyptian anything, everything.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. He's always the one that is interviewed. He's the only one that can talk of this stuff.
Yeah.
And from KMT, which is a modern journal of ancient Egypt, Volume 8, Number 2, summer of 1997, he was talking about matters on the Giza Plateau. And basically what this article does is debunk the findings of the previous researchers.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. Because he will poo-poo anything and everything. I've seen him do it on shows. Yeah, he's always there. And
so he's that asshole.
He is that asshole. He debunks the theory of the hollow records, period.
Wow.
Now, from Wikipedia, who is Zahi Hawass? All
Yeah,
right.
who the fuck is this man? He ain't no history buff,
Oh,
obviously.
well, he actually is. He is an Egyptian archaeologist, Egyptologist, and former Minister of State for Antiquities Affairs, serving twice. He has also worked at archaeological sites in the Nile Delta, the Western Desert, and the Upper Nile Valley.
Oh, shit.
I think
Never
that he
mind.
has set himself up as demi-pharaoh. He's not quite Anubis. He's just somewhere through there. Anyhow, it says that as his biography at the National Geographic Explorers Web page notes, he's in the know. He's with the beautiful people.
Well,
So it's like he's another one that's
Obviously, if
above
he's-
being questioned.
if he's governor or whatever. Or whatever the fuck he is.
No, he's over. He's
If he's
Egyptologist.
overhead of it, over Egypt.
Well, as far as the archaeology of it, yeah.
If he's overhead of the archaeological, whatever the fuck, damn you. Then yeah, he is big. He is.
They have given him all
Beautiful
the power.
people.
It is never good to give, especially tiny men, lots of power. We're seeing how that works. We've seen how that worked. Napoleon. And anyhow,
Napoleon Dynamite.
it states that he is responsible for many recent discoveries, including the tombs of the pyramid builders at Giza and the Valley of the Golden Mummies. At Giza, he also uncovered the satellite pyramid of Khufu. In 2005, as part of the National Geographic Society-sponsored Egyptian Mummy Project to learn more about patterns of disease, health, and mortality in ancient Egypt, he led a team that CT scanned the mummy of King Tutankhamun. So he is the face of Egyptology. And he's sponsored. He's got the bucks behind him.
Loves it.
Now, what I thought was interesting right here, who is he really? What is he about? And this is not being political. Let me say this. It's just interesting when you find somebody that's got points of view that are this blatant. They stand to be mentioned.
Yeah.
Hawass has been a long-standing opponent of normalized relations between Israel and Egypt. In January of 2009, Hawass wrote, quote, "The concept of killing women, children, and elderly people seems to run in the blood of the Jews of Palestine." And he also quoted, "The only thing that the Jews have learned from history is methods of tyranny and torment, so much so that they have become artists in this field," end quote. Yeah, that's
Damn.
Yeah. He explained that he was not referring to the Jews' original faith, but rather, quote, "the faith that they have forged and contaminated with their poison, which is aimed against all mankind," end quote. In an interview on Egyptian television in April of 2009, Hawass stated that, quote, "although Jews are few in number, they control the entire world," end quote, and commented on the control they have of the American economy and media. He later wrote that he was using rhetoric to explain political fragmentation among the Arabs and that he does not believe in, quote, "a Jewish conspiracy to control the world," end quote.
Okay.
Sounds like he's been watching quite a bit of BitChute. Anyhow, and he has, like I said, vast amount of media appearances and the author of many publications. It's almost like he's above reproach. When you've got somebody like that, and maybe he's afraid that somebody else will go in there and make this huge archaeological discovery, that or he knows that there are things there and he's going to prevent anyone from discovering something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard other archaeologists that he just would not allow them to do or go or whatever, and he was in their face the entire time and in front of the camera the entire time. He's in love with himself. He truly is. So, I've never been impressed by the man, and like I said, I
don't know what he looks like.
Over his, well, it's just, it has nothing to do with what he looks like. Any of these archaeologists, it's like little old wrinkled people because they're out in the sun all the time. But there's something about him. There's an essence. There is an arrogance. I bet that there's lots of people that know other little men that's of the same, variety. in our world today. But anyhow, this last bit, and it was interesting because Edgar Cayce, are you familiar with Edgar Cayce?
No.
Well, we'll have to do a cup of coffee on him by themselves. I should have probably done that before reading this. Edgar Cayce was called the Sleeping Prophet. And he was American. I think that what happened was when he was a child, he had some kind of severe illness. And that when he recovered from the illness, he had this ability. It was basically prophecy. He was able to see things, people, and he would go into a sleep-like state while it was like channeling. And that people would come to him when they had medical issues that nobody else had been able to solve. And that through his readings, there were, healing, different herbs, different things like that. When I worked at the health food store, we did have Edgar Cayce formula products still for sale.
Okay.
So, but some of the stuff you're going,
That seems weird. There's a lot of stuff in.
Oh, it was really weird. But some of his prophecies, if you want to call them that, readings, whatever, channelings, you're sitting there going, what? And some of them are very much like Nostradamus. You could make them to mean anything and everything because they're very vague. So, this comes from the Edgar Cayce Association of Research and Enlightenment, A.R.E., and this is by John Bunker and Karen Pressler from July 24th, 2014, and this title is Our Research into Cayce's Hall of Records. So these individuals have gone back through his readings, through their own research and stuff, and compiled this article.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And they say the story of the Hall of Records begins with Atlantis, because everything begins with Atlantis.
Of course, because that was the end-all be-all.
You really? I mean, what about the ones that live? What about the continents that live?
Yeah.
Pangea. Why are people
We
not?
don't know jack shit about Atlantis anyway. We got a fantasized idea.
Right. And it's just one of those Pangea. We need more people to research Pangea.
Yeah.
All right, the story of the Hall of Records begins with Atlantis near the end of days of the Atlanteans. And the readings explain, quote, there came the first egress of peoples to the Pyrenees and into what later became the Egyptian dynasties. It says images from these areas seem to represent the disaster. Now, as far as giving line and verse of these readings, I'm not going to do it. Somebody can, because it's almost like scripture, where it's like chapter and verse and stuff like that. Well, the Cayce readings are similar as far as their notations. If somebody wants to go online and look at these, and I think to get into some of the actual readings, you have to pay a nominal fee. Hell, you have to cross everybody's palm with silver these days.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, the actual reading, this snippet says, the first of the eruptions that awoke from the depth of the slow cooling earth, and that portion now near what would be termed the Sargasso Sea first went into the depths. With this, there again came that egress of peoples that aided or attempted to assume control, yet carrying with them all these forms of Amalus that he gained through that as for signs, for seasons, for days, for years. Hence we find in those various portions of the world, even in the present day, some form of that as was presented by those peoples in that great development in this. The Eden of the world, this reading is referring to astronomy and therefore associated with the development of the calendar, that as for signs, for seasons, for days, for years. I swear it reads like King James. I need an NIV version. Anyhow,
sorry, you ain't going to get one of those.
No. I'm trying to remember when he lived, and it was, people spoke differently.
Uh-huh.
Obviously. And since whatever channeled being. Anyhow, what these people carried were records of the movement of the stars and the constellations. All right, I understood that one. Yay for me. And it says the readings tell us where they settled, quote, in those periods when the first change had come in the position of the land, there had been an egress of peoples from the Atlantean land, and they built a city near the edge of the Sahara, end quote.
Okay.
So, we learned that the first pyramids were built in Egypt.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. And we discovered the reading of Miss, and what it was when he would do readings for people, he did not include their names. So you've got like
Miss Y.
Miss whatever, mispronounced, who had a past lifetime in Egypt during the period of the Great Pyramids construction when Ra-Ta was the priest. That sounds like a cheerleading thing. Ra-Ta, Ra-Ta.
Yeah.
So, and as far as rather than getting into past lives, whether they are, whether they aren't, the people that have had these experiences thoroughly convinced that this is something that they lived. I think it's genetic memory. But anyhow,
Could
that's
be.
for another cup.
But that wouldn't make sense as for someone who is completely not of that bloodline.
How do you know if it's thousands of years past?
I mean, there have been instances of stuff from of children reclaiming to be from the 40s or whatever.
Right. But
There's documentation of that.
I understand that. But
it wasn't part of their bloodline.
But, well, I get what you're saying. But anyhow, that's for another cup. We'll do that one very soon about the reincarnations and stuff. I always thought the ones about the Dalai Lamas were interesting. Anyhow, Ra-Ta was supposed to be around 10,500 BC, according to Cayce. The readings go on to describe 2 lifetimes before that one in the land of Og. You remember about the giants?
Yeah.
Several cups back. And another in Egypt earlier when the first pyramid was built there. This proves that there were pyramids in Egypt before the Great Pyramid was built. That proves nothing.
Yeah.
That proves that somebody believed this, but that is not hard evidence. It goes on and says, when Ra-Ta and his people arrived in Egypt, they conducted archaeological research, and they began to build upon those mounds that were discovered through the research. With the storehouse or record house, where the records are still to be uncovered, there is a chamber or passage from the right floor pile to this entrance of the record chamber or record tomb. Now, that's where the ones that Edgar Cayce had said that this Hall of Records was beneath the Sphinx, that it contained basically all knowledge of that time, including the other stuff. And it says here the monuments were unearthed and added to from time to time, and many were buried beneath shifting sands.
And did they find anything in the structures, or
not yet, because dude won't let them go and look. Hawass or whatever his name was. So, and that's part of it. And they're saying also, and I'll just go ahead and give a synopsis on the rest of it, and people can go and read it word for word. They're also saying that there was a planetary alignment that used to be called the Sphinx constellation, that today, thanks to the Greeks, because they thought it looked like a centaur, is Centaurus. And it says that there was a zodiac in the temple of Esne in someplace. It's too late in the day. Latopolis, that shows this illustration of a sphinx in place of the constellation Centaurus. So that's where it is. They're saying that basically the stars have to align correctly for this Hall of Records to be found, which is pretty cool on this. They're talking about as far as the 2 Sphinx gods on the opposite sides of the horizon, which were called the Guardians, that they were, constellations of Centaurus on the left and Leo on the right, and that the flying serpent in the center of the horizon is Hydra, the largest constellation in the sky. The head at the tail of the serpent represents the planet Venus. Okay? Wow. And it says, this exact configuration of stars, planets, and constellations over Cairo, Egypt, these are the exact configurations. And they know that the pyramids were placed, I think it was like Pleiades or something like that, that they were very much in alignment with the planetary alignments.
They were aligned with the alignments.
They were aligned with the alignments, okay? They got right there. And so it would stand to reason that the Sphinx would be the same. So again, this is stuff that we don't understand, and because people are wanting to poo-poo, astrology, everything, yeah. And Cayce provided many clues to the location of the Hall of Records. Quote, the one in the Atlantean land that sank, which will rise and is rising again. Another in the place of the records that leadeth from the Sphinx to the Hall of Records in the Egyptian land, and another in the Aryan and Yucatan land, where the temple there is overshadowing some. And it's like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Like I said, it's like the quatrains. It's shit. For the entity's tomb, then there was a part of the Hall of Records which has not yet been uncovered. It lies between or along that entrance from the Sphinx to the temple or the pyramid, in a pyramid, of course, of its own. So what he's saying basically is that there is another pyramid that has yet to be uncovered.
Yeah. I mean, after how many years, of course there's going to be stuff that's more than likely buried under all that sand.
Because of the little, he's the curator gnome is what he is. Hence we find the entity, this is another one of Cayce's, was the first to set the records that are yet to be discovered, and for the preservation of the data that is yet to be found from the chambers on the way between the Sphinx and the Pyramid of Records, end quote.
Okay.
Yeah, that's about how I feel. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
So that is where we're getting that about Cayce's readings of the Hall of Records. And it says also when they may be opened. Yet, as time draws nigh, when changes are to come about, there may be the opening of the three places where the records are one, to those that are initiates in the knowledge of the one God. The temple of Iltar will then rise again. Also, there will be an opening of the Hall of Records in Egypt. The records are one. End quote.
Oh.
Thus spake Edgar Cayce. But, and basically what it's saying, the time will be right, and whether we have Egyptian curator gnome trying to stop the prophecy or not,
it's going to happen.
Oh, yeah. There's been a lot of little gnomes that have tried to stop prophecy over the years. And, I mean, we got to think of this, that the other two great libraries were destroyed. So it would stand to reason that they're going to try to prevent any and every way that they can from the Hall of Records being opened or discovered or any of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Because the forces of darkness know that an ignorant people are easily misled.
Absolutely, they are.
So, anyhow, we've got mummies and sphinxes and sand. Lots and lots of sand.
You got a shit ton of sand.
Yeah. But it's a matter of looking as far as those constellations and going back to astrology, not astronomy. There was no distinction in those days between the two. There should not be any kind of rift between them today.
Nope.
That's just another way to keep people ignorant.
Divided.
Yeah.
To keep people divided in general.
Oh, sure. Divide and conquer. It's one of the oldest strategies. So anyhow, Kid is not quite as...
I feel like shit.
He's not as energetic.
I feel like shit.
But we want peppermint tea. He will be getting peppermint tea directly. No. It'll help you.
I hate peppermint.
But it will help you.
I hate peppermint.
Do you want to feel better?
I don't give a shit as long as I don't have to eat peppermint.
Well, there you go. Enjoy your sickness, baby.
I'll eat anything else, not peppermint.
If you've had experiences with paranormal, supernatural encounters, UFOs, aliens, cryptids, if you have more information about the Edgar Cayce readings about the Hall of Records, that would be great. If you've got local, regional, family, myths, legends, what have you.
Share what you know.
Share what you know, absolutely. And if you want us to share it, we'll be glad to do that.
Yeah.
If you want to just tell us.
Explicitly.
That's all right.
Explicitly to give us permission.
Oh, absolutely. Always. If you want something shared, I need that in the email that says,
like clear cut,
you
yes.
do have my permission to share this.
Like clear cut,
yeah,
yes.
We've had to deal with legal stuff here, so it's like we don't want to have to deal with legal stuff there.
Possibly going to have to be dealing with legal stuff here more.
God help. Anyhow. The email cupofcoffeewithscream@gmail.com. Know that you're loved.
Yes.
And know that you have a purpose here.
Mm-hmm.
And if you need somebody to tell you that through an email, hey, that's okay. We can do that too.
Yeah.
So we will see you all on the next cup.
Yes, don't forget to like, share, comment, and most of all, subscribe and click that little notification bell button. Fuck, damn it. Just click it. Just click it. You know the drill.
Bye.